Next, let's look at crosstabs with a single sample, but now we'll have multiple categories. With multiple categories, using the simple if function won't quite work. Well, it could, but it would be quite difficult. There's another function we can use that will make our life easier, and that is the lookup function in Excel. So we're going to use the lookup function. We're also going to use the COUNTIF function. Finally, Excel has a few tools we're going to use, the sort tool and the paste as values tools. We'll have to use all of those parts in order to do a crosstab with a single sample, converting text into numbers, and then finally making a nice little table and plot of that. We're going to finally make our very first plot, and in Excel we can add the crosstab directly onto the plot. In this exercise, we'll be using a bar chart. Bar charts are often used to represent categorical data, specifically crosstab data. At the completion, you'll be prepared to do the bagels and the Hello Kitty exercises. Mostly, not quite. So here's an example of data, categorical data, that would be collected in a survey trying to elicit category incidence frequency, or how often people would interact with a product category or a product. For instance, here we see the questions asked was, on average, how often would you buy a hot dog if available in front of the classroom at a reasonable price? And people responded with different answers, like once a month, 2 or more times a week, once a year, once a month, once a week. I'm going to copy and paste this kind of response on over here to column D. I'm just going to put it in random order, once a week. These are my responses. I'm also going to make this a little wider. There we go, once a week. Let's see, what else do we have? We have once a month. That seems to come a little bit after once a week. Put it there. Once a year, I'll put it after that. 2 or more times a week, I'll put it before once a week. So it's in some sort of a logical order. See, that's the longest. What else do we have? Once a year, never. Never was a response. There we go. Put never here. And I think those are my 5 different kinds of responses. There we have. Delete this. So there's my responses. Next, I'm going to give it a code, because it's easier to work with numerical data. I'm going to encode 2 or more times a week as 5. Once a week is 4. Once a month is 3, once a year is 2, and never as 1. So now we're going to have codes. We can use these codes to convert our text into a numerical code, which will make it easier for us to make our plots. Now, you notice I just typed in these numbers. I did it that way because it's going to be a bit easier to manipulate the data than instead of adding above. You're going to watch me copy and paste and change the order of the data quite a bit. You also notice I copy and pasted the text, and I used the exact text that I had here. Excel gets a little questionable sometimes in converting text into, in reading text properly. By copying and pasting the text values, I'm basically ensuring that I don't have a mistake in Excel. To do the next step, we need to take a lookup function. The problem is the lookup function requires that what I'm looking up is in alphabetical order. And this is not in alphabetical order. I mean, never appears in the alphabet. N appears in the alphabet before O. So we need to put this in alphabetical order. I'm going to select this and the codes, and I'm going to sort. Data, sort. It's going to ask me what. I'm going to sort on responses. Notice it says my data has headers. I selected the header as well. Okay. You see now it's put in alphabetical order. Next step, I can now find the encoding for these specific responses. So encoding. And all I am is encoding my responses here. So here we have. To encode it, I'm going to look up See, it says lookup. That's a function in Excel. I'm going to look up a value. I'm going to look up this value in the lookup vector. The lookup vector is here. Those are the different responses that we have as possible. Next thing it says is give me the result. The result vector is there. Those are the possible codes. I'm going to close that. I'm going to let you take a look at everything I have. Looking up the blue thing and the red stuff, I'm going to pull out the purple stuff. Next, we know we're going to copy this from row to row. I want this row to change, but I do not want my responses or codes to change. So I'm going to add in these dollar signs on my row numbers for my responses, my result vector, as well as my lookup vector on my possible responses. So now my responses will be held constant, my coding will be held constant, but my result, well, what it's looking up will change as I go from row to row. I'm going to hit return now. You see the first encoding gave me 3. Once a month has the code of 3. I'm going to copy and paste this going down. See, I'm going just paging down to move fast. Paste. Now let's check to make sure I got what I wanted. So here's a 4 lookup once a week. Well, once a week was a 4. Makes sense. Here's a 1 for never. Never is a 1. So the coding made sense. I have now encoded my data. Next stage is to find out how often people gave a different response. To do this, we're going to use the COUNTIF function. So here's my response frequency. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the text to make everything look pretty. There we go. Make this a little wider. That looks better. So, to find the responses, or how many nevers I have, I'm going to use a function called COUNTIF. It's going to count this range if it meets this criteria. So it'll tell me how many ones there are in this column of blues of the encodings. I'm going to copy this from row to row. I don't want the range at which it's coming from to change, so I'm going to go ahead and put the dollar signs now in front of the range that I'm looking at. And I'm not going to put it in front of the encoding I'm looking up, or the criteria, because I want the criteria to change as I go down the rows. That's 6, copy and paste, 17, 11, 4. Now just take a look at what this is doing. It's grabbing this set of data, because I put in the dollar signs, and it's comparing it to 2. It says, if it's a 2, give me how many, add 1 to the total. And so at the end, I know how many 2s I have in the data set. And you see we have 6 2s in the data set. We're almost there, but not quite. I would like to plot this in increasing order or decreasing order of category incidents. Fortunately, this is not exactly in increasing order of category incidents. That's a 1, a 3, a 4, a 2, etc. It just doesn't make sense to go 1, 3, 4, then 2. It'd be nice to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't quite copy and paste all of this. I'm sorry, I can't quite sort all of this to get it in the right order. And I'll show you why. Look at this number for once a month, 17. I'm going to go data, sort by encoding this time, code. And now, once a year has changed to 0. Once a month is still 17. The challenge is that it's not in alphabetical order, and I'm doing all of my encoding and looks up in alphabetical order. So I need to back up. I just hit Control Z. What I'm going to do is copy and paste all of this as values. So, oops, home, paste as values. See, I'm just pasting it as values. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is paste special as values. Okay, so now I've pasted it as values. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the text of this first column again and make two of these rows a little bit wider so it appears pretty. Bold. There we have it. Now that it's expressed as values, see, that's just a value and that's just a value. Whereas here, it's actually a formula. See the difference? Value versus formula. Okay? Now that it's expressed in that format, I can go ahead and sort this by the code column, so it's in a natural ascending or descending order. I'm going to go to Data, Sort by, still has header, by code. Okay. Now it's put in a rational code order. I can, if I want to, calculate percentage, and that would be equal to, make this a little bit wider, equal to the number of responses divided by the total number of responses. Again, using the dollar signs appropriately to hold things constant as I copy it from row to row. Copy, paste, and I can put it in finally percentage format, whole percent. What you see here as a response is very similar to what you see on page 56 of your workbook. This is the data I can plot. Now that I have my data, I'm going to go ahead and plot this in a standard bar chart that one would use to represent the data. Now in the bar chart I'm going to do, I'm going to select an empty cell and insert a bar chart. Now with crosstabs, it's common to use a stacked bar chart, but specifically a 100% stacked bar chart. By using a 100% stacked bar chart, this one versus that one, that's stacked. There we have 100% stacked bar chart. I can use the raw response frequency data. So there's my chart. It's been inserted. I'm going to select some data, add. Now to get the series are literally the responses. I can't just quite collect them all. Instead I have to collect them individually. So that's never. The response value was 6, my response frequency. Okay, okay. Then I'm going to add the next series. Notice how this new part broke open. This is why it's going to be stacked bar chart. Series name, once a year. Series values, again this 6. Okay, I'm going to just keep doing this. Add series name, once a month. Just working my way through all of the data. Okay. Add series name, once a week. Series value, 11. Okay. Add 2 or more times a week. Series value, 4. Okay. Categorical answers. I guess I'll just choose response frequency. Okay. What we have now is our response frequency being plotted in a nice little bar chart. We're going to scroll up a little bit so we can just focus on this chart. This is a standard bar chart that one can create with this kind of data, with categorical data. So it's a stacked bar chart representing a crosstab. We don't have our crosstab yet. We can add it easily with Excel. Notice I'm going to Chart Tools. They have this format here, which will add the crosstab directly into our plot. There we have our crosstabs. Each category is represented, and the response frequency is shown there. Next thing is that I'll change this into some color, and you notice the never is the dark, and the 2 or more times a week is the light. That goes, so the dark is what's being highlighted versus the light. That can work, so I'll leave it there. I'm going to go ahead and change the chart title to represent the question that was being asked. The tall, hot dog eating frequency. Change this just a little bit. I'm going to change it by changing that to response. You notice now it just says response. Now if you take a look at this plot and you compare it to page 56 in your workbook, you'll see the two are highly similar. This plot is a standard crosstab plot. There's my crosstab table. There's my crosstab plot. It's a 100% stacked bar chart. And it shows in decreasing intensity of color how many people said never, how many people said once a year, etc., all the way down to 2 more times a week.